All right, so I'll call the meeting to order. And the first agenda item is to approve the agenda. So can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
I shall move.
So Marv Goldman first, Tom Elliott second.
Second, yes.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Second is approval of the September 21st, 2022 Citizen Advisory Committee meeting minutes. You all had a chance to review it. Can you get a motion?
I shall move.
Mark?
I'll second it.
John?
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, and then the third item is approval of the November 22nd Citizens Advisory Committee meeting minutes.
I'll move to accept those and approve those for November 22nd.
Okay, Mark. I'll second it. John, is that good?
I'll second it. Go ahead.
John will, okay, good.
Yeah.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. We're done with that. So we'll move on to the topic of discussion. Was that somebody coming in?
The fire chief.
Okay. So the purpose of today's meeting is to discuss city bond options and fees. And we started talking about this. First, it was presented in these prior minutes that we just approved. The notion to look at taking the $1 million hurricane reserve cash, and do we take half of that and use that for projects and then put a line of credit in place for that. But as we did our homework in the fall, the banks, it was not cost effective. It would have been about $10,000 a year in a commitment fee and another $10,000 in attorney fees, so it just didn't seem like the right thing to do. But in our conversation with Chris Rowe, who's the bond counsel the city has historically used, and one of the banks that we've worked with, South State, they recommended maybe taking a look at what your long-term projects are, and it might be better to do a long-term bond financing. And so what Kyle did is he looked at the next future years of projects, and so this is basically accelerating 4 years of stormwater projects is what we're proposing here into a $2,120,000 maximum bond issuance or loan over a 10-year period. And so I put the summary together as we look at how those costs would come together. And so we have two bids, one from South State Bank and one from Valley Bank, both 10 years. South State was at 4.36%, and Valley is at 4.50%. And again, these are what's called a bank qualified loan. So that is the bank gets the benefit of an interest rate discount for their tax purposes, and that's why at today's rate, this is the 10-year Treasury, for example, I believe was at 3.9 at one point earlier today. So that's kind of a gauge for it. Both of them have semi-annual payment terms. South State has no prepayment penalty if we just use excess cash, but if we were to refinance it with another lender down the road, then there's a 1% prepayment penalty.
Of the outstanding balance?
Of the outstanding balance.
Does that hold true for the entire length of the 10-year term?
Yeah. And Valley had offered prepayment. And so just so you know, part of the angst in that is the current bond issue we have with it was SunTrust originally. It's had a prepayment penalty for the entire 20-year term. And so back when we had some cash reserves and interest rates were at zero, our payoff was exceptionally high because it's really a make-whole provision. Today, that prepayment is basically zero. But because rates are what they are, it doesn't make sense to pay it off. And so South State has in-house legal fees of $3,000. Valley has $7,500 is what their counsel has told them. And then South State had to add a dilution test of 1.25 times, which is basically a debt service coverage test. Valley did not put one in their term sheet, but most likely they would have one. Today there's currently a 1.25 coverage test with the Truist bond, Centrust bond. South State put in their term sheet a requirement of a minimum of $500,000, $500,000 compensating deposit balance. Valley noted they would like a deposit balance. We got them both to note what their deposit rates would be, so if they pay on balances. South State pays what's called effective Fed funds, and so that's 4.58 today, minus 50 basis points, so 408. Valley will pay target Fed funds, which is 475, minus 50 basis points, which is 425. So it's interesting. Valley charges a little bit more, but they'll pay more on the deposits. And so I'll get back to that, how that I see that potentially being in a recommendation. Big thing is we look at total cost of the bond. So the interest expense, I ran the amortization schedules, which you guys have, and you can see what that interest expense is over the 10-year period. If it went to full term, what each of the bank's legal fees are. So that gives you, basically $22,000 more to go the Valley route versus the South State route. And then I also broke down, what we're really looking at financing is $2,073,354. The bond counsel is quoted as $18,000, which is $17,500 in legal fees, $500 in legal expenses. Because Chris Rowe, Brian Miller Olive is the firm. He's based in Tallahassee, so he will need to come to City Council. So that's to cover his printing fees and his travel fees to come present, get the resolution signed and whatnot.
Does this have to go before a judge again?
It will not.
Doesn't have to.
It will not. So it just. So the thought process is for us to discuss this today, and if we have a recommendation, then we'll forward it to City Council for a workshop and recommendation.
They don't need to go out to the residents.
No.
City Council can
No,
do it on their own.
it's not a vote.
Okay.
No, there's not a vote.
No. Our contract with our city attorney has in it stipulated in the contract that if there is ever a legal opinion required with a city financing need, he gets 75% of the bond counsel fee. So that's why his fee is $13,125, which is 75% of the $17,500. And so we're going to require, or the bank and the bond is going to require our law firm to create an opinion that the city has the legal right and status and ability to enter into this financing agreement. And then, so then I added back the bank legal fees, and so that's where you see here where we come down to the difference in the total bond need of financing. So $2,107.5 versus $2,111.9.
970.
Yeah, 212. Yeah. Not a big. It's the $4,500 difference in the bank's legal fees. So as we look at the bond financing, the benefits of it is that the residents get their stormwater projects accelerated. So Kyle, I don't think we set that. That wasn't in the summary sheet, but we get what were the streets again?
The streets of the projects?
Yeah.
Okay.
And wasn't it stated by the residents in general or in mass that we really needed to make an effort to get this done a lot quicker than in 10 years? And that is why we're sitting here tonight discussing this, because we, as the folks that make recommendations, felt as if it was in the best interest of the city, and the city residents told us on more than one occasion that it should be a very high priority.
Yeah, so the residents have spoken to say this is a priority, and some of the council has
Spoken as well.
said that's their
Okay,
intention,
just
so.
wanna,
So we have projects 17th and 18th Street, 19th and 20th Street, along with 9th Street, and then 22nd and 23rd, Morgan and 25th, and last would be 14th through 16th Street. So that would take us all the way through our master plan, with the exception of the marina, which there's not a high importance for doing anything at the marina. We don't have a major flood issue there.
So, Mark brought up a point earlier. When we first talked about this, we were thinking more like it was gonna be like a $4 million bond issuance. But we were throwing into that number a couple things that were not today. So one item was the balance of the payoff of this building is $460,000. Since there's no benefit with the prepayment, plus the fact that Chris Rowe, our attorney, said if we refinance it, we lose the tax-free benefit, so it would become a taxable loan at that point in refinancing that piece. So that was one component. Second one was we had talked about adding the $1 million Gulf undergrounding to this financing, but in Kyle and doing his calculations found that if we had budgeted the $1 million for stormwater that we're now replacing with ARPA money, the $802,000, then the optic wasn't appropriate to finance that $1 million. And as you can see, and we'll go through the financial statement, there's sufficient cash to fund that out of the cash flow. So that's the drivers that brought it down to the $2 billion financing need. So again, the benefits are residents get stormwater projects accelerated. Two, just the savings on the mobilization fees. We anticipate that being $250,000 in savings. Three, what's interesting today is now the interest on our cash reserves is almost going to be an arbitrage to the cost of financing. So,
which is
you know,
nice.
just assuming if we go with South State, which is the lowest at 408, and we take our cash and move it to Valley, if we're getting 4.25 today, but as the Fed keeps raising rates, that's going to keep going up.
Yeah,
You know, we'll make money
for the near term, anyway.
Well, yeah, in the short run, and then in my fourth bullet point on the benefits, I said the city has the ability to accelerate repayment within 5.5 years, reducing our total interest expense to $342,000 instead of $521,000.
And if we anticipate the gross revenue of the city to increase, as we have in the past, we should have plenty of cash to make that happen at the
Yeah.
right time. Yeah,
So-
so we'll be saving that other money by doing it this way as well, and getting the project completed, which is sorely needed.
So in the package that you guys were sent in advance, there's the amortization schedules for the two facilities. There's the two term sheets from the banks. And the key is Heather has spent a lot of time, our city finance officer, in putting this forward-looking budget together. So if you look at the front page of the budget, it says at the top, City of Bel Air Beach General Fund Projections is the first page.
Yep.
So the top line is our fund balance, so that's our cash. So we finished last September 30th at 4.359 in cash. You know, what we're projecting at the end of this fiscal year, if we do that, this is, you know, putting this bond issue in here, we finish at 5.477. We finish September of 24 at 6.1, September of 25 at 5.5 almost, and then and what's driving those years is we've got $1 million each year with the undergrounding project in 23, 24, 24, 25. So then that money's done, we get money back from the county, so 25, 26, our cash goes up to $6.5 million, 26, 27, it goes to $6.8 million. So that's where I built in, basically at the end of year 4, we take $1 billion and prepay it, and then we just follow the schedule out. And so we'd have, basically 3 more payments. If we kept the same payment, we'd be done in 5.5 years at a $342,000 a cost. Now, we don't have to, but I was thinking of Mark's point. What if we get out and, hey, we're making more money on our deposits than we are on the loan?
We're gonna have a lot
But
of
the
that
good news
in
is
the
the city will have the flexibility. With no prepayment, we don't have to do it.
Right.
But I think recommending the city being good stewards of the residents' money, these are ways to make it happen.
Yeah, and I think it gives us a little bit of a hedge against having that emergency fund at 500,000 instead of $1 million, because we know we've got cash.
So what I did do, if you look back at the general fund projection on the fund balances, Kyle and Heather, these next 5 lines are the different cash components. So we have the unassigned cash, the cash assigned to capital projects, what we budgeted for transfers between different funds. And the key part is here's our required reserve. So we have our charter requires us to have a 20% cash reserve. So we wanted to make sure we illustrate to City Council what that looks like. And then we're required, through an ordinance to maintain $1 billion in hurricane preparedness cash reserves. So, we can put, the hurricane cash into this, higher interest bearing, checking accounts, or money market account. The other thing about Valley in their term sheet, as you might see on deposits, is they also noted that they will not charge any transaction fees or deposit service charges, which I know there's some charges right now with the existing relationship with Truist. So Heather is open to exploring with the 2 banks what those options could be. So we could find a new home for the city's deposit relationship. South State does not have a branch nearby. Their closest branch is at 580. But with technology today, you don't necessarily have to have a branch nearby, but sometimes it's nice if you need to run up for some cash. But I think we could talk them down.
We could keep a small cash account at a local bank.
We could park $500 million to be nice to them and get the 4.08%.
Right.
Would they waive all the fees associated with all the cash, or just this related to this specific $500,000 account?
No, so it all, I guess, transparency. So I'm a former executive for Valley Bank, and they didn't have a municipal person when I retired nearly 2 years ago, but today they have a municipal person they hired from Chase, and they created a product that is for all communities fee-free.
Wow. I mean, that adds up to a lot of money.
So Heather, our finance officer, reached out to her counterpart at the city of Bel Air Bluffs and said, hey, I need could you do something for my money? And they brought the whole new program up, so they waived fees and brought them up to the higher interest rate. And so she's already gotten a good reference from the city of Bel Air Bluffs regarding
And
that.
Valley has a local branch.
Yeah, it's right up the street.
Great.
So, we did not go out to a full bid. We're not required to go out to a full bid. South State has done the last 2 small financing bids we did. So, I think it was in 2016 or 2018, the Bellevue Estates.
Bellevue, and then 2020, I believe, was the South State for stormwater.
So we did the undergrounding of the utilities through a bond issue for the homeowners in the Bellevue Estates, and South State provided that financing. And then when we created the new stormwater reserve, stormwater fund, then South State provided that funding. So they do have experience with the city, being our finance partner. And I'll throw it open to questions. See what you guys.
Is there any, I'm just curious, is there any interest rate risk by the time you lock in on this thing, or is there?
The interest rate is frozen until, or we're locked in until April 7th.
Till April 7th. Okay.
And so the thought process is we have a committee meeting, I forget, first Monday of April.
So you get
Which we, if we get this approved then
locked in.
we get it locked
Got
in.
it.
So.
Okay.
And the Valley rate, if you can see the dates of when the term sheets came in. So I reached out to the Valley team and I said, hey, FYI, there's another bid. You're now the high bid. And they called me back yesterday and just said, we'll commit to the 4.5, but that's as low as they could go. So we did go back to the well just to see, but
Well, and I don't think that there would be a problem with giving the loan to, was it?
South State.
South State, and opening the account with Valley. When they each are getting something.
okay.
But if there isn't a huge difference, we should, it didn't look like it was that big of an overall difference when everything was taken into effect. What didn't we say it was like?
$4,500
$4,500
overall cost difference between the two, but
And the interest would probably make up for that anyway. The difference in the interest that they're paying.
They run every year, that would probably make up a good portion of the interest rate difference too.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking
I
too.
would
So,
think.
Tom's got to say about this.
okay,
hey, Tom,
Tom?
That's unmuted.
Tom?
is he muted?
It says he's unmuted.
You have to click on the hand.
And, try to unmute him again.
Tom, can you hear us?
Rejoin. All right, we'll just continue until I can figure this out. Rejoins.
Oh, he's got his camera fixed.
Well, that's us.
Oh, that's us.
Yeah, I booted him out. Hopefully
Oh,
he
okay.
rejoins and that fixes the problem. Let's see.
should I text him to rejoin?
Okay, thanks.
Mind if I ask another question, Walter?
Yeah.
I assume the incremental costs associated with the capital projects over 10 years with inflation and all that kind of stuff is going to well exceed kind of what we're looking at.
Yeah, we
here.
didn't know how to build that in.
Yeah.
But we would think that the material savings
Yeah.
by accelerating it all and getting kind of a bulk price.
Yep. Yeah.
And the mobilization.
Right, that's
In-
a
in
big part,
addition
that's
to
a
the
big part,
250,
yeah.
yeah.
Competitive bidding just for have a larger project.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Expands your potential vendor list.
Yeah, so we'll go out with a new RFP for
Yes.
the remainder of the work.
Yes.
Great. All of a sudden, it'll get cheaper by the existing contractors. You know that'll happen.
You have a passcode?
No, he should be using the same link he had. There's no passcode. He got it.
Just like in my office.
Yeah, I don't see him. I mean, he joined twice since I opened the meeting, so he should be able to use the exact same link.
Yeah.
You tell him to use the link.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
I could always just call
We can
him.
just call him, have him on speakerphone, send him.
Yeah, since we can't see them.
What does ARPA stand for? I probably should know that, but.
ARPA, the American Rescue Plan.
Oh, Act.
Free money that we can use towards
Yeah.
stormwater infrastructure.
Got it. Take it.
Hello,
Hey, Tom.
I can hear you just fine. Am I audible to everyone?
On my cell phone, we couldn't hear you on the link
Yeah.
though. Yeah.
It kept showing the host has disconnected you from the meeting. So whatever it is, this is just fine. This is fine if it's okay. I had a couple of questions or points. Wait a minute. Anticipating, the city council is going to ask, how was it these two banks were the finalists? We have a question, we have an answer to give them?
Yeah, I mean, what I would state is that, because I do Valley being where I had formerly worked, and two, South State has done our last two financing requests. And when I talked to SunTrust, Truist, for the revolver at $500,000, they said it was too small to even bother with. And
So that would be the answer, most likely from Bank of America or Chase or Regions or Cogent or the others.
yeah, they, I know, not Cogent, but I do know them, but I didn't bother. But I know the bigger regionals, like I've a buddy who does all the beauty work for TD, and they're the lowest deal they'll do is $100 million.
Yeah, no, I get it. That's fine. So there's an answer for that.
We could paint everybody's house.
Because these two banks are focused, and you've already come forward to mention that you were a former employee. Does anyone else, just for full disclosure and transparency, have any other business interest or employment or ownership in either of the two banks? I don't.
No.
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 Okay, good. That's on the record. That's great. You mentioned that some of the perks between the two banks. Ron, you're on the inside and know how these banks work and what perks are significant. So it really comes down, if the costs are virtually the same for the loan, which do you think has the more significant perks that are important for the city?
Well, honestly, Tom, my recommendation is we take the best of both. So we take the lower rate with South State, and
Okay.
then we, give Heather and Kyle the option to, explore the city's banking business with Valley. And Valley did commit to me that even if we don't do the loan, that the Fed funds minus 50 and the no transaction fees is still on the table.
Okay, and that's only doing business with the city itself, not its inhabitants.
No. Otherwise we would overwhelm the branch.
All right, no, that's fine.
With the wrong kind
And I
of
take it
attention.
it's possible to do more sewer projects sooner, like you said. But then there's the citizens have a concern about displacement and stuff with a lot of construction going on.
Well,
That's not our decision. That's not our call.
Yeah, so when we had our street, Donato resurfaced, I mean, the gutters were taken out. It was a little pain, but these, I think some of these residents, their streets have flooding issues, and so they'll put up with the short-term pain to get the long-term result.
And that's what I'm wondering. What's to keep it be done in 2 years?
What's the
What's the plan's length?
The
duration expected?
timeline, I would say, is definitely under 2 years for once the project starts. Once it
commence.
But it
I mean, they're
wouldn't be
gonna-
all the streets all at one time torn up. They would move methodically, street to street to street.
I get it.
And get the stormwater work done, get the repaving done. As they're digging up, the next neighborhood, they're paving the last neighborhood, and so there's more of a flow to it, Tom.
They're not gonna expand the contract time from a regular stormwater
Yeah.
project. Maybe 30 days, but probably not, because they're just gonna bring more equipment, more
Yeah.
workers.
Yeah.
I didn't quite hear that last sentence, but it all sounds good.
I say that by doing 5 projects at once isn't really gonna increase the project timeline on the contract.
Got it. Thank you. This is Kyle, right?
Yes.
Thank you. That's all.
Do we have any concern on the dilution test? Is that,
Oh, I forgot to send that around, but we're at 4.03.
no?
I guess the 125.
Yeah.
So we are, Kyle will need to add that when we send it to the city council. And again, we've got built into that, I think it's 180,000 right now, which is the current bond issue here, and maybe 18,000 for the current stormwater. So once that burns off,
Yeah.
then we're even stronger.
Yeah, no, it's a good number.
That's a great question. Any other questions, thoughts,
Citizen comments?
citizen comments? Kim?
I'm delighted. I commend each of you for the hard work and bringing some good results here. I think it's bringing a level of business-like action to our council, which is very much needed. So, very well done. I think I'm fully supportive of it. I think there's something you do need to think about in terms of there's a big resistance to any kind of debt, and everybody thinks that this city should run out of its pocketbook. And I think being prepared for those arguments and being able to show how a professionally run enterprise can operate will be helpful. I'd also like to think about prioritization of the project in that someone did mention flooding. Some of our streets flood regularly. That's another benefit to this project in that climate changes are difficult right now. We don't know when there's going to be the next big storm, and to get better capacity for dealing with the volume sooner is certainly a much better thing for the entire city, and it's a core function that a city should provide. So again, I'm very supportive of this. I think it's a great move. I would ask that they consider the flooding priorities, because some of our streets do flood regularly. I live on 9th Street. It's one that regularly floods. It's the core entry into this lovely facility here. It's where our city park is. I would certainly I think it would be wonderful if that were a higher priority in the total project.
Okay.
But well done, gentlemen.
Good.
Thank
Thanks
you.
for your comments. Appreciate it. I appreciate the prepare for the no debt argument. So,
It's always a challenge, but
Yeah.
leveraging is always a good thing when managed correctly. I mean,
Mhm.
exactly, which is what you're doing here.
Well, right, and I think the numbers don't lie.
Right.
To do it any other way would put us at risk, quite frankly, from a capital.
I mean, both financially and
And,
from,
well,
from
of course,
residential
yeah.
experience.
I mean,
yeah.
we listened to the citizens when they said, what is your number one fear? Or number one thing you want the city to take care of, and what's the most important? And that was really it. That's all we heard from everybody. So the master plan that was developed some time ago, is that the plan that will be putting in place to
Yeah,
use
it'll
for
be wrapping up.
prioritization and all of that stuff?
Yes. They'll be wrapping up the master plan that was updated in 2017.
Okay. All right, and so the whole thing, to your point, is not going to take more than a couple of years to knock out. Yeah. Great.
I have my fingers crossed that the city council buys into what we've done here, and especially what you have done with your background. Because I'm going to say this personally, we were tasked with the city manager search. And we made our recommendations, and then we as a committee, in my opinion, got blindsided. It's like all the work we did was for null because they totally did something else. And an old nautical term, dragging anchor, and it drew this thing out when the candidate was right here.
It's unfortunate, but that's
I know,
that's
but
what happens when you have people that are not experienced in hiring, firing, interviewing, and asking the appropriate questions and looking at the background and doing the checks.
I understand that.
You know, it's like clenching your teeth, going.
I had that experience in my second career once I retired from the Navy, and I had it to a point when I became a senior NCO, so I know where we're coming from on that, but it's very frustrating when you do so much and you literally figuratively get blindsided. I was really upset.
Well, Tim, I know you have a finance background. I mean,
I do.
building my recommendation of, recommend to city council, we go with the South State bond proposal to finance the projects that you laid out with Kyle. Are you guys game with us submitting it to city council for their discussion and review?
Yeah.
Yeah,
You making that a motion, I'll second it.
Okay, I'll make it a motion.
Okay. All right, motion to go with loan from South State for stormwater.
Up to the 2.12 billion.
1.12 mil for stormwater. Okay, and I second. Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. And then is there any other business to discuss? Kyle, is there anything that's coming up on our plate?
No.
There's a workshop tomorrow, right? The sign ordinances on that?
Yes.
At one point there was talk that they wanted us to look at it too, but it's been beaten up
Hey.
so many times. We've seen it.
That's another one
Hey,
we've
they
done.
knew I looked at it.
I don't even want
wanted
to look
check
at
it
that ordinance
tomorrow.
again.
I don't either.
And then it would come to you guys.
That was a mess. And
Related to this proposal, if there's any way that I can help, if there's anybody that I can talk to, or if you need to show some more support, I'll be glad to do whatever.
you know, that can only help by talking to, the residents that you're friendly with and saying, hey, we've got a great thing going now and the
So
stormwater's
when
gonna
we
be
get it on
fine.
the city council agenda,
Yes.
and after we present, and then they'll open up for citizens' comments after we present, that'd be a great time to speak
And the
up.
more people you could bring in to have citizens'
That's a good
comments to
point.
support,
Yeah.
if there were 10 or 15 people that wanted to speak and they did, I think this would be a
It
done
may
deal.
well influence the council.
Absolutely.
That's good. Do you have any idea when this is gonna come up?
You said April
Probably by April
1st?
1st, right?
To save the rate, it has to be the first meeting in April, which would be the first Monday in April.
Okay, good.
We'll get it to a workshop next month. I just need to, I'll be traveling. I need to look at that date.
Okay, well, if you're not here, you can go on Zoom. Because I can sit down as well. But we'll make it work.
All right, with no other business, can I get
I move to adjourn.
John,
Second?
second, Mark,
Mark, okay.
all in favor?
Aye.
6-0.
All right.